Hi guys, Dane here, and today we are going to Riga in Latvia. So I was lucky enough to be invited along by Alina Sire from the British Council Latvia and Juta Paraga from the Latvian Literature team. So this video is going to take you behind the scenes with my trip to Riga as I go in search of authors, illustrators and publishers as well. Now, I must admit I'm not the best at flying, but fortunately I brought plenty of books with me, and there was some nice views out of the window as we went along as well. So we stayed at Monica Centrum Hotels, which was a decent little hotel. We actually had such a full itinerary that most mornings we left at maybe 9 AM and got back at 11:30 PM, so I didn't get to see much of the hotel except for a quick bath maybe after a long day of walking around the city. Now, you may notice that this music is in Latvian. There is a reason for each of the songs chosen here. They are mostly Latvian folk songs. Folk songs are a huge part of the Latvian national culture as well. I mean, they're celebrating their 100-year centenary in 2018, but half of their history has been under Soviet oppression as well. So they're really just coming out of the darkness now with some fantastic new kind of buildings such as this. So this is the National Library of Latvia. What you're looking at the moment is the People's Bookcase, where people from around the world are invited to send in any books that mean something to them. So a lot of visiting dignitaries will do it, for example. I'll leave a link below to where you can find out more about this, because again, anyone in the world can do it. When we were there, it was just around freezing point. It had been minus 15 degrees Celsius the week before, so the river had actually frozen over and been snowed on. But it was coat and hoodie weather, but it wasn't unbearable, so that's good. We were actually having a guided tour of the Library of Latvia, and then after our tour we also went downstairs and had some presentations as well by some of the movers and the shakers in the Latvian publishing industry. You can see there the river frozen over. This piano here and some of the notebooks you're about to see belonged to Gunars Burkett, I think his name is. He's the person who designed the library. The designs for the library actually started in 1989, and it wasn't until 2004 that they officially got funding and the go-ahead. The building was finished in 2014, and the architect did get to see it and died at the age of 92, I believe, 3 years or so later. So that little snapshot stories book is one of many books that I picked up along the way. I will be reading and reviewing these. This video is actually the first of my Latvia week, so there's going to be a different Latvian literature video every day this week, including reviews, some tags and some other stuff. This here is part of the IAmIntrovert campaign, so the idea being you can wear a coat with some Latvian literary quotes and you take an anti-selfie, so a selfie from the back, which is my profile picture on Facebook now as well. This was delicious. The food here was pretty good, but for me, every meal was quinoa and beetroot because I'm vegetarian and I don't like quinoa or beetroot. But I did have a delicious veggie burger. This is the nice place. This was kind of used almost as a base of operations. It's effectively a bookshop with a cafeteria. They have a printing press on site. You know, we met one guy there who could read Livonian, which is a dead language now, effectively. The last native speaker has passed away, so there are only people who now speak it as a secondary language, and only around 40 of them in the world. That book that you just saw was Nora Eksteina's book, and we go to see the launch of that at some point. This is the IAmIntrovert potato beer. This is actually brewed by a Latvian author, very delicious. So this is the launch for Soviet Milk by Nora Eksteina, and this was at a place called Robert's Books. It's an expat-owned shop, and it has this great mixture of both English, Latvian, and Russian books as well. Some books that are wrapped up that you can buy, and you never know what you're going to get. And here as well, we're learning from the author and the translator. And that was her acknowledging her publisher as well. And of course, there was wine going around at these things, opportunities to mingle, to ask the author questions and all that stuff. This brings us on to day 2, where we went on a tour of Riga's Old Town, and we were actually taken around by a tour guide The thing that you could just see there was where they used to shoot Soviet versions of Sherlock Holmes, because they weren't allowed any Western entertainment, but Sherlock Holmes was one of the few classics that, you know, was still available behind the Iron Curtain. Graffiti wall, which I think is standard in most cities. This is the old city wall as well.
A big roof and story about virgins built inside of the wall. So sorry, in this case, no, it's purely art.
That tour guide was very good, actually. The original plan was to have a different one, and he was unavailable, so our host took a chance and sort of asked for recommendations, and that was the guy we got, and he was fantastic. That building there is Wagner's old theatre.
The troops, Latvia's government did amazing things. They built a small building here before this was built, and that was only for the troops and their family.
You can see there are cat hostels, so these are dotted throughout the city and especially in the old town. Basically because it gets so cold and there are a fair amount of stray cats, these cat hostels are designed to give the stray cats somewhere warm to go, which is super cute if you ask me. We're now looking at the National Monument as well in the old town, the Monument of Freedom. And then we moved on to the Museum of the Occupation of Latvia. Now what I didn't realise is that basically Latvia's had all sorts of problems throughout the years, because obviously they've had historic problems with the German and Russian occupation and invasion. They were formed as a country at the end of the First World War, although their roots go much, much deeper than that. And during the Second World War, they were invaded by the Russians, then by the Germans, who they saw as liberators until they realised that actually Nazi rule isn't all that great. And then as the Nazis declined and went out of power, the Russians marched back in again and reoccupied them. And every time this happened, you know, huge numbers of people were killed, buildings were destroyed, and Latvia itself is really just coming out of the darkness of the Soviet period. It's actually important to know all of these things because it gives an extra context to the literature that's coming out of the country, especially things like, you know, folk music and folk tales and traditions. They have a big midsummer festival. They have a festival every 4 years, which is kind of a singing festival where all the choirs come together. So here we are back at Robert's Books, where we learned a bit more about the Latvian publishing industry. One thing that surprised me is that poetry is much bigger in Latvia than it is over here in the UK. And, you know, there's a huge amount of poetry being published, lots of children's books, there are lots of illustrators as well. If anything, I think if you were to give one word to the Latvian scene, it would be that it was sort of super diverse. There are also a lot of women as well, not just in publishing but in general. I think they said that they've achieved a 50% split between males and females in leadership positions, and I think we can learn from that. This place we went here, this is the most delicious veggie burger I've ever eaten. It was amazing. I'm watering at the mouth now just thinking about it. And then from there we went to see a Grupa Sigma perform. And Sigma are a Latvian sort of art rock band, I guess you'd call them. This is them now, so did you judge for yourself by listening to the song that's playing and deciding what genre you think it is. But they were fantastic. So they also performed with projectors shining onto them, showing various people dancing, and it was really fascinating because it's kind of slow to fit the songs. I don't know how they actually went about doing it from a technical point of view, but they were very good live. We had one of our guides was sitting on the end of our row and passing along in sort of Chinese whispers what the songs were about. So, for example, one of them was the lyrics were a poem by one of the poets that we met. One of them was called Monument to a Goat. And then that brings us on to the Friday when we went back to Nice Place to learn about Latvian children's literature. There's so many interesting projects going around actually, and it's fascinating to see the way the illustrators work. So they quite often work with one author and then have to dramatically change their style for another author. This is a fridge magnet that was made for me by one of the illustrators. He's actually one of the few Latvian illustrators, possibly the only one, who does illustration full-time as a job. And we basically filled out a little quiz, and then they made us a, you know, bespoke fridge magnet based on our answers, which was very cute. And then we headed off to Mr. Page, where we met the Orbiter group, which are these Russian-speaking Latvian poets, and they're doing all kinds of fascinating stuff. Their poetry is quite often in the form of installations. So, for example, they had a radio wall where, as you walked along, you heard the poems coming out of the radios, and it meant that depending upon the speed you walked at, you would hear a different poem each time, which was super cool. They were fascinating guys just to listen to what they had to say, and I'm definitely going to be checking out some of their stuff. And then we went for a walk around the city as well. So this was the only free time we had pretty much. And because we didn't want to get lost, we headed off in a group. You can see there the river had started to thaw by this point, but it was still very snowy. You get used to the routine of taking off your coats and your jumpers every time you go into a different place. So this here is the launch of 30 Questions People Don't Ask by Inga Gale, and this is a poetry collection.
Of Riga, marvelous. Rebels of the city. On that day, the entire city went down on its knees. Viņām ir tik maz vietas uz šīs vīriešu dāmu pasaules, uz šīs pasaules, kur dzīvo daži, stipri un labi. Viņām ir jācīnās par vietu pie ringa ar zobiem un nagiem, ar matu kušķiem un krūšu galiem.
I wanted to include that little clip of Inga reading in Latvian just to show how it's strange you can hear the kind of cadences of poetry even though it's a different language that you don't necessarily understand, and I thought that was super cool. And that, unfortunately, other than the dinner we went to and got a little bit drunk, was the last thing that we had a chance to do in Latvia. So here are just a few of my photos as well, just as I talk through to the end. It was a fantastic time and I learned so much about Latvian literature and the Latvian culture in general. And I would definitely encourage checking out latvianliterature.lv if possible to, you know, find out a little bit more about the scene. In the coming week, I'm going to be sharing more Latvian literature themed videos, including some reviews. And to be honest, I discovered so many cool books, including some that are yet to be released, that I think I'm going to continue talking about it for the weeks and months to come as well. I also learned the occasional word of Latvian, so I learned that laiks means time, and it has nothing to do with the Russian dog Laika that was sent into space. And I also learned that paldies means thank you. So, paldies for watching. Be sure to check out some of the links below to find out some more about the different authors, translators, illustrators, etc. all covered in this video. And keep your eyes peeled this week for more features on Latvian literature. It really is a fantastic place. There's so much there that we could talk about that I don't know how we're going to fit it all into 1 week, to be honest. So hit that subscribe button for more, hit like if you've enjoyed this, and I will see you soon for more videos. Paldies!